All right, we will go ahead and get started now. Like I said, my name is Tom Lyons. I'm a senior support engineer and subject matter expert over here at Inflow Communications. I'll be bringing you through our webinar on user modification and creation today in Pure Cloud. I do have 6 years of unified communications experience with Inflow Communications on a variety of platforms, including the Mitel platforms, both ShoreTel 14.2 as well as Mitel Connect, as well as Genesys Pure Cloud, now known as Genesys Cloud, and Ring Central. A little bit about Inflow before we get started today. Inflow does have a sole focus on unified communications and contact center solutions. As a result of that, anybody you get on the phone from a support perspective is going to be well versed in the voice applications that you use at your business and will be able to assist you very rapidly. We are a Mitel Platinum partner as well as partnered with Ring Central and Genesys Cloud. We have offices and employees across the United States and currently support over 200,000 endpoints and over 800 customers nationwide and in many cases worldwide. And we are maniacal about the customer experience. We want to make sure that we get you all the information that you could ever need and then some revolving around your voice system to make sure it is as efficient as possible for you and making sure it's doing everything that you possibly could need for your business needs. Few upcoming webinars that may interest you as well coming down the pipe here. On the 21st, we do have a webinar on Mitel disaster recovery. So if you are running a Mitel system in any way, shape, or form, and you are interested in figuring out how to make your system more resilient for issues that may come up, that would be a great webinar to attend. On the 26th, we have a customer engagement strategy webinar, so a starting point on how to engage your customers. And then on the 27th, we have a Mitel 14.2 to connect migration and what to expect. So if you're still running the Mitel 14.2 platform and you're looking at moving to Mitel Connect, this would be a great webinar to take a look at the different features, the different visual look of Connect versus 14.2 and what to expect when you go ahead and start that transition. Here's a quick snippet of some of the customers that we support. And as always, there is a question box in GoToWebinar. If you do have any questions as we go through this short training session, feel free to go ahead and use that, and I will answer those at the end. If there's anything that I cannot directly answer, I will make sure that we get you that information in an email after the webinar is completed as well. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in to Pure Cloud. So you can see here, I am logged into the main Pure Cloud page here as an administrator. Up at the top, I do have a series of options, including the admin tab. And what we are going to be looking at today is from an administrator standpoint, how to create and modify users. So how to create users in a variety of different ways, how to look at their permissions, assign them a phone, and make sure that your users are in a good stead so that they can use the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the admin tab here. And when you click on this admin tab, you're going to get a page that will look similar to this. Depending on your permissions on the system, if you have full administrative powers or if you only have a few, your settings and abilities to change certain options may be different. In this particular case, what we are looking for is people, which is going to be under people and permissions. You can find it by just clicking the link under people and permissions, or if you just type people into the search box, you can pop it up as well. And this is going to bring you to a page that is going to give you all of the users that are in the system currently. So I'll go ahead and click on people. And you'll see here, there is a bunch of different things that will pop up. We have a number of users in the system here. This is our sandbox, so we use this one for testing, which is why you see some weird emails in there. But to go through what you're looking at before we get into how to actually add people and change their roles and permissions, you have all of the people in the system, whether they are active or inactive by default, which is actually going to be what this dropdown will handle. You can see 25 per page, which is customizable up to 100 per page. And you can see their name, if they're active, their current licensing, which is going to affect what they can do in the system, as well as how much they cost per user, the number of roles they have assigned, because you can have multiple roles assigned to one user so that they have different permissions, their email, and even their division. So you can see all these different aspects here. What we're going to focus on today is actually the creation of the users, assigning their phones to make sure that they're ready to go, and then also making sure they have the correct permissions. So what you need to look for on your side in your Pure Cloud instance. If I wanted to filter on this page to look at just, for example, inactive people, I could do so. I don't think we have any inactives, but anybody that was set to disabled, you could do here. You can also do the same for active or deleted, or just look at active and inactive at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Add Person button, and it's going to pop up a little box for me. And you'll notice there are 3 different tabs at the top. There is a link, there's a person tab, which is what we're currently on, and then there's an import tab that you can use for bulk users. So I'm going to go through all of these real quick here for you. Let's talk about the link first. The link is going to allow you to actually send a link to users that need to sign up for the system, and they can follow this link. They will get a welcome page, be able to enter their information, and then they can add themselves to the organization. So they can actually do a lot of the legwork for you by adding their name and their email address and everything for you. Now, there's obviously a couple of caveats to that, meaning if anybody has this link that shouldn't have this link, they could potentially add themselves to your organization. Also, if you're in a business where not everybody should have phones, this may be something that you may not want to use. So to go through a couple things you can do for that, if you don't want to have any link available for anybody to share, you can actually turn off this little slider that says people can add themselves to the organization. If you turn that off, even if the link is sent to somebody, they can't use it. And the other thing you can do is you can allow only specific email domains, which is what we've done here with inflowcommunications.com and inflowcom.com. What this will do is even if somebody that is outside the organization receives the link, if their email address doesn't match those email domains, they won't be able to use the link to sign up. So this can stop people from outside the organization from signing up using the link. But this is a nice quick way to get people set up if you have a few dozen people that are new and you just want to send them the link and let them go through their own information, you can absolutely do so. The import tab, which we will look at fairly briefly here, is a way to bulk import users. So this is a great way if you are new to Pure Cloud and you need to get a few hundred users into the system, you can actually create a CSV file, which if you have come from a Mitel platform, you may be familiar with the DB import functions and the ability to add and remove and modify users using the CSV file. This one will allow you to add users, and it's actually very, very simplistic compared to the DB import file that I'm talking about. You'll notice here it asks for you to upload a file in CSV format. It also provides a link here for an import example. So if I click on this link and I open it here, let's see. Let's actually do this. Save file, open containing folder. Let me find it here real quick. And we'll just edit with Notepad so I can kind of show you the pieces here. So my computer does not want to open this as an Excel file right now, but this is an example of what the file looks like. If you open it up, the top piece here in line 1 is going to be your column headers, and you'll see they are separated by commas. That is what a CSV file is. It is a comma delimited file. And you'll notice that there is a name for CEO person. We've got an email here, a phone number, so on and so forth. This is going to provide you a template that you can use to create your users. And there's only 6 or 7 fields, so very easy to use. The other option, which is going to be what we're going to focus on today, is the person option, because this is going to be what you will usually use if you're going to add 1 or 2 users at a time if you're already up and running in the system. So when I click on the person tab, we have the ability to use the full name, as well as the email and the division, and then there's a bunch of optional fields as well. So if I wanted to create myself, for example, Thomas Lands, inflowcom.com. My division, if you're using any divisions in the system, which is just basically a way to separate functionality between different users, you can select the division that the user would be in. In our case, we only have the home division. And then we also have optional fields that you can add to the user when you initially create them. So you can see I can add my title, I can add my manager and department, and I can also add a work phone number here as well, which is going to be an easy way to actually add any direct numbers that are associated with users. To make sure that they are able to be called through your Pure Cloud instance directly if needed. You can also put in the location, any home phone number, which will be put in the directory so that people can find another number to contact them at. And you can even assign queues and roles if you know the queues that they need to be a part of and the roles that they need to have. So in this particular case, I'm going to leave this stuff blank because we're going to go through other options for it. And I'm just going to create my name, my email, and put it in here. I'm going to add one M because it might get mad. And then down at the bottom, you'll see this little checkbox that says send invite now. If you leave this box checked, then what will happen is when you create the user will be entered in the system, but they will also get an email welcoming them to Pure Cloud so that they can start getting set up. In this particular case, I'm not going to be sending an email to myself, so I'm going to uncheck the send invite now. I'm going to hit create. You'll see up at the top right, it says person Thomas Lyons successfully created. It leaves this field open so that I can create another user if needed. So if I close that, this page will refresh. And then I can use the search box to find myself. And so you'll see here, I've got my user here. It does say I'm active. I've never logged in. And it also notes that I have a collaborate license, which we're going to talk about momentarily. And also the welcome was never sent. If I click on my user, it'll bring me to a settings page for my user, which is what we're going to focus on now. So you'll see here by default, just going through the different settings here, we are set to an employee role, which has very, very basic permissions. In this particular case, the employee role, all it's basically allowing me to do is use the collaborate features built within Pure Cloud, which is going to be the chat features that are built in. If I want to do anything else with this user, I need to assign more roles and permissions so that we can do things like actually use and assign a phone, assign a number so that I can actually accept calls, and even more permissions if we want to make sure that this user can actually be used in a queue and actually take queue calls. These things are all licensed out in Pure Cloud differently, so there are different roles that are going to be required for that. Now you'll see in the roles tab, I'm currently seeing all the assigned roles for the user, so I'm only seeing the employee role. If I want to look for other roles, I can go ahead and change this view dropdown and change that to all. And you'll see that I have access to a whole bunch of different roles that are available. So ones that you will likely be looking at for your users, depending on what you're doing in the system, is you might be looking at the communicate user, which you can see it is the communicate role for placing calls. That does change your licensing in Pure Cloud as well. And this is going to be a standard user so that you would be able to place and receive basic calls, but nothing else. So you aren't handling queue functionality. Another one that is very common, especially if you're using the queues in the system, which most of you using Pure Cloud would be, is the Pure Cloud user, which you can see here is the Pure Cloud role for basic agent functions. It does roll in the communicate functions such as being able to use a phone into it, but also lets the users be assigned skills and take queue calls like they would be an agent. So what I'm going to do here, before I make any changes here, is I'm going to go to my division and licenses tab so you can see how this looks. So just like before when we created the user, if I needed to change the division of the user, I could change it here. But also you'll see under the license type, there are 3 different options: collaborate, communicate, and Pure Cloud 2. And those are grayed out. You can't just change to those from this page. It will automatically update based on the roles and permissions that you assign to the user. So I'm going to show you that here by going back to the roles tab here. So when I go to the roles tab and I click on communicate user and I turn it on and I save it, which is going to kick me out and get used to this piece because this is kind of how this interface works. Whenever you save a setting, it will actually pop up, in this case, a message just saying that you are updating your role and your licenses. And this is because this is a different billing segment at this point, because I'm choosing to upgrade the amount of abilities that this user can do. So you can see here, currently I have a collaborate license, which is just chat. And the licenses required for the communicate user role is the communicate license, so I can use a phone. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. And it will kick me back to this page, at which point I will go back to my user. And you'll see here, it now says communicate for my license instead of collaborate. If I click into here now, and I go to my division and licenses, then you'll notice that Communicate is now available. In addition, we've actually gotten another add-on, which is the Salesforce adapter. This is because now that I can use a phone, I can actually use the Salesforce integration if your organization is using that particular adapter within your Salesforce. If I were to go back to roles and do the same thing and change myself to a Pure Cloud user, you'll see the same thing here. So I'll go here and I'll change this to Pure Cloud user. We're going to get a little update box when I hit save. And you'll see that this now requires the Pure Cloud 2 license because I am now updating my user to be able to handle calls in a queue. So I'll go ahead and hit yes. It'll kick me back out. And when I go back to my user here, it now says Pure Cloud 2 for my license. So that's how the roles, the division, and the licenses work. There is a lot more you can do with this, like modular permissions for administrators or users that have access to certain things, like looking at their interactions, but not other interactions for other users, stuff like that. And it can get very modular. If you have any questions on how to set up something in particular, that would be a great question to ask our support team. They'll be able to help you out with that as well, because there are hundreds and hundreds of different ways to modify. If I go and click on View Permissions, you'll see all of the permissions that I am given as well. So these all come with the different roles that are assigned. So the roles are actually the container for the permissions that are given. And in most cases, the permissions are fairly straightforward to read. So for example, here, if I go down to conversation call accept, what that means is that this user can actually take a queue call and is allowed to actually pick that call up here. And you can see that role is under the Pure Cloud user role, and that this user has full access to it with a minimum license of Pure Cloud 2. And this is how the system picks the minimum license for you. If you have any permission that requires a minimum license of Pure Cloud 2, you will have a Pure Cloud 2 license. If your highest is Communicate, you'll have Communicate. And if not, you'll have Collaborate. So that's how that works. There's a whole slew of different permissions. So depending on what you need, you can actually change this in the Roles and Permissions tab, which would be saved for another webinar. But you can make those changes here as well. So that way you can give people a modified role that has access to some of the permissions, but skip some of the others depending on what you need in your org. The Phone tab is super self-explanatory. You can select a phone that's built into the system so that you can assign that phone. So you can see here we have quite a few here. The common thing for this would be a WebRTC phone or a soft phone that is used with Pure Cloud. Most people do use that WebRTC compatibility when they use this platform. Otherwise, if you have phones built into the system, like a Polycom phone, you can assign it here as well. In addition, you have the ability to change their timeout in seconds, which is how long the calls to this user will ring before they go to voicemail, as well as an auto answer for ACD calls. So that's going to be calls through the queue that will, and in this case, if you use the auto answer function, those calls, instead of ringing the user and allowing them to accept, will beep the user and put them on the phone so that they will automatically get answered. So you do have that capability here. ACD skills. This one is important, especially if you are using any queuing in your system that requires skills, and is something that we actually see on our side get missed a lot when new users are created in the system. What all this is this allows you to assign a skill for calls as well as a language for calls to your users. The reason this is important is because if a queue is set up to actually do skill matching and you add an agent to a queue and that agent does not have the skill associated with the calls, they will actually not be able to get the calls. So this is actually a common reason why when agents are added to the system, they're not able to accept calls. So if I click into the skills section, if I know the name of a skill, I can start typing it, or I can look through this drop down to choose a particular one. So if I wanted this user to be able to accept calls for Linux, I would add the Linux skill here. There's also a skill meter that you can use, which is a 5-star rating here. So if I wanted to add 4 here, for example, that would give him a rating of 4. That can be used for different skill matching in the queues, which can be used on a best skill available basis, so that if there's somebody with 5 stars, they would get selected before me if they were idle, for example. but then I might get the next call. Otherwise, if you're using all available skills, then as long as I have the skill, I would be able to get the call. And it's much the same for languages. You'll notice that there's a few in here as well. You'll want to add the language that the queue is specified for. In this case, this would be English spoken. And again, maybe I'll give myself 4 out of 5. This will allow me to keep this setting. The queues option will allow you to assign queues as well very quickly for the user. Now you can do this from the queues tab if you so choose to, and you can assign multiple people there. So if you're building a new queue and you're going to put in existing users, that's a great way to do it. Otherwise, if you're adding 1 or 2 members at a time, this is a good way to get this set up so that you are able to add them to all the queues that they need to be at the same time without having to touch each individual queue. So in this particular case, if I was going to be in Inflow, or if I was going to be in training support and training test down here, I could select those queues and that would add me to those queues. Keep in mind those ACD skills that I just talked about. If there's any ACD skills assigned to these queues, I need to make sure I have those skills on my user. Otherwise, I may not be able to get those calls depending on how the queue routing is set up. Utilization is going to be how the user can actually handle interactions. So this is going to be for Pure Cloud 2 users in particular. So you'll see here, there's options for maximum capacities for voice, chat, email, and callbacks here. With voice, there is one option that you can set up in this system that is different from any other PBX that I've seen, which will allow you to choose whether or not you want to block incoming interactions or ACD calls when the user's on a non-ACD call. In a traditional system, typically any call, whether you're on the phone extension to extension, outbound to a family member, on an ACD call, or somebody else called you directly, as long as you're on the phone, most contact centers will not send you a call by default just because it sees you on the phone. With Pure Cloud, if you uncheck this box, then if you're on a non-ACD call, then the queues can still alert you and still present you with a call, so you can still drop the call that you're on and start grabbing the interactions that you should be. You can also change the maximum capacity of the different interactions that you can handle at one time. So in this particular case, you can see here the default is you can handle up to 4 chats at one time, 10 emails at one time, and 1 callback. And you'll see that voice, callback, and email are all set to interrupt, which means if you're on a chat, for example, and you get a voice call, then you can then the voice call will actually interrupt that, come through, and you'll be able to answer the voice interaction. If you wanted to make any changes to these, like I didn't want, for example, chat to be interrupted by email, I could just click out of the email box there. If I wanted to add it back in, all I have to do is click in here, and any of the options that are not already set up will become available for me to choose. So nice and easy to do. And then finally, we have the person details. The person details is going to be the main page that they look at. There's only a couple options that really matter here from an administrative standpoint. So to go through those here, this is the blank page here. As you can see, there's not a lot to it because we just built the user, didn't add too many details. There's a view edit mode as well, so I can actually edit this information for my users. If I click on view edit mode, you'll see there's an ability to email the user, make a call. I can add a new section down here. So you can add like a relationship, so your relationship to the company, any groups they're in, their location, any skills and certifications. You can basically use this as like a mini LinkedIn and set up a hierarchy in your organization if you want. The big one though is going to be the contact information, and the reason for that is this actually handles things that are going to be used by the system. So if I click on the little edit button here, you'll notice that this will pop up quite a bit, and you'll see I've got my main email. I can change my email address here. I can add another email as well, so that people can see multiple emails in the system for me. And then I can also put in work phone numbers. And what is good about this is if you have a direct number in Pure Cloud that should be going to a user, if you add the work phone number here, that number will actually go to the user in question. So if I had a 503 or 503-555-1212, I could add that in here. you'll notice that, or I actually have to put the +1 in front. I always forget about that piece. So you'll see here that will allow me to save that way. If that number existed in my PureCloud instance, then if that number was called and it reached our PureCloud organization, it would route to this person at this point. As well, you can add an extension here, and that will assign an extension to the user. So this is actually how you're going to add extensions and phone numbers to your users if you need to do it after the fact. The easier way is definitely to do it as you add users because the fields are right there on the person tab. But you can do it here as well. You can also add a cell phone and a home phone number and additional phones as required. So nice and easy. And so with that, that completes our webinar on adding and modifying users. The main things we covered were the actual creation of the users, how to assign your specific roles, your phones, your ACD skills, and changing your details of your user. For more specific roles and permission stuff, if you have any questions about that, I would recommend you reach out to our support team so that we can help you figure out the roles that you need. Otherwise, if you have any other questions, go ahead and send those through in the questions box. I'll wait a couple moments here. Looks like right now we currently do not have any. Okay, nothing has come in yet, so if anything does, I'll hit them after the outro here, but just to go through some of our customer contacts as well. If you have any reason that you need to get in touch with us, whether you need support or you need some information, here's our current customer resources. If you send us an email to support@inflowcommunications.com, it will create a ticket in our ticketing system. They are answered in the order that they are received. So this is a great way to request information, or if you have a low-hanging issue or thing that you want to change, this would be a great way to contact us. You can also use our support portal at support.inflowcommunications.com. This is going to allow you to see all the tickets that you've created with Inflow, their current status. You can reply to them, see all the status updates, and if you're the main contact for your system, we can even set it up so that you can see every single ticket that your organization has created as well. If this is something that you're interested in but have not used before, you're going to want to give us a call or send us an email because there are some settings we will need to enable in order for you to be able to use the portal. And then finally, if you want to contact us on the phone, which is by far the best way if you have a pressing need or if you have a system emergency, you can reach us at 855-946-3569 or 855-9-INFLOW. We do have a 3-ring answer policy, so you're not going to be on the phone waiting for 10 or 15 minutes just to get in touch with somebody. And once you do get in touch with a support agent, they're going to be somebody that's certified and well-versed in your platform, so they will be able to assist you on the first call. For information on Inflow support packages, you can also send us an email at sales@inflowcommunications.com or reach us on the phone at 844-446-3569. Once again, my name is Tom Lyons with Inflow Communications. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. We do hope to see you in the future. And as always, I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Thank you very much.